Troy from Ace Appliance in Toledo, Ohio. Welcome back to another in-home diagnostic video brought to you by ApplianceVideo.com. For the repair today, what you're going to need is a 1/4 inch extension for your drill or a 1/4 inch nut driver, a multimeter, wire strips, flashlight, and electrical tape. Okay, today what we're looking at is a Frigidaire refrigerator. And as you can probably see from the displays up here that the freezer's at 71, your fresh food is at 75. They're both set to be at 0 and at 37 respectively for the temperatures. So it is not cooling at all. And what I can show you, or at least inform you of so that you'll know to look for, is that this refrigerator, if I open the freezer up, I can hear the fan running. The fan in there is your evaporator fan. That's the fan that moves all the cold air from across your evaporator into the fresh food section and recirculates back around. So with that, with lights on and fans on, that's telling me that we have a compressor issue in the back. It's either a compressor is not working right, the starting components are not working right, or we're stuck with something completely burned out. I would say it could potentially be a defrost issue, but since the fan is on, it is not stuck in defrost. In this unit itself, if you have this type of control setting up here, inside here is your defrost control board, and if it was stuck in defrost, we would have no fans on either. So what we have to do now is we have to pull the unit out, get to the compressor in the back. When I'm at the compressor in the back, off the compressor there's going to be 3 pins coming off of it once I remove the starting components. I'm going to use my meter to check for the actual ohms resistance across every combination of the 3, and you're going to have 3 separate readings. 2 of the readings will add up to the total of the other reading. That will tell you what your windings are, and if they're okay or not. I'm going to check from each pin to ground to make sure it's not shorted out to ground. If all that checks out okay, chances are you have bad starting components. You could have potential damage to the inside of the compressor, but that's not something you could test for. There is a universal starting component which I will essentially use on this unit if that's the problem, to get it back up and running. So I'm going to pull the unit out now so we can get to the back. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to remove the screws holding the back panel onto the unit. Once you remove the panel, slide it back up your water line just so you don't got to remove your water line. And I'm looking at that we have a Tecumseh compressor. You can still use the starting components on the compressor. Being that's a Frigidaire, from my experience and just our experience, that you'd have potentially a higher fail rate with the starting components I would put on the unit. I just need to double check and make sure it's not the actual compressor that's damaged, and that it is the actual starting components, and to go from there. So what we have to do is we have to remove the starting components, which the starting components are right inside here. You have your overload and your relay for your starting components right in here. What we're going to do is they have a little metal clip holding them on. To take that metal clip off, it hooks on the bottom, wraps around, and then hooks on the top. So I'm going to go ahead and just check it to see if I have any problems with the compressor. So the bottom 2 pins are showing me about 10, but they still are fluctuating. The top and the pin closest to me with a better look is right at, it's fluctuating quite a bit, settling at right around 5 and 5.5. So we're pretty close as far as the winding goes. I'm going to double check them again. There's this one down here. It's right at 10. So it is pretty close. I can't definitely say if it's a bad compressor at this point or not, because the windings are showing fairly close to what they should be registering. I'm going to now check for continuity. I'm going to check for it being shorted to ground. Alright, so no short to ground. So what we're going to do now is the discuss with the customer options and make a decision on the repair from here. Alright, so what we're going to do first is we're going to get the starting components pulled back out of the inside of the unit. We're hoping that we can get them out fairly easily. And the lines can flex some, you just don't want to bend them too significantly. So you get the components back out. Once you got the components back out, you're going to separate them, because it is actually two separate pieces. You're going to reuse this piece right here. This is just basically your overload. The start relay on this thing is... Can you hear that? The rattle? That tells me that this relay is bad. So I'm going to set that aside. I'm not going to plug anything back in yet, but we're going to eliminate the plug off of this plug that was onto the starting components. We're going to peel back these wires a little bit. And what we're going to use is, I am using a universal starting component kit. It basically works on all compressors for a refrigerator. You just have to follow your directions properly to hook it up. And I'll explain to you how I'm hooking this one up as we go through. The kit comes with 2 wire nuts, and it comes with the starting component. It has 2 black wires that are by themselves, which are for the actual power leads that we had stripped back on the unit. It has a red, white, and black wire that, according to the package, the diagram shows exactly which ones to hook it up to. It has your compressor, which says common, start, run, and it tells you what color wire goes to those plugs or pins off of your compressor. So I like to lay it on the floor, and since this one has 1 pin on top and 2 pins on bottom, I lay it on the ground just like the way that the picture looks as it is on there, so I can look and say that the back one, which is the farthest one from me, is the white wire. So I'm going to take my white wire, I'm going to push it back onto that pin. Alright, that one pushed onto my pin. The other bottom wire is the red, so I'm going to push my red wire onto the bottom pin. And then that leaves me my black wire, which goes to the top and pin that's by itself, which is the common. Once I have them secured into place, I'm going to re-find the 2 wires that I had snipped free. It doesn't matter which black wire goes to which wire coming from your unit. You find them, you put 2 of them together, and then I wire tie them. After I do wire tie, I make sure I don't have any wires sticking out the bottom. Make sure my wire tie is on there securely. Take my other black wire to the remaining wire left from my unit. And I put them together. I twist my wire ties on, my wire nut on there. Get down there nice and tight till you start seeing the wires actually twist around each other. Once that's on there, now on this one it has, and if you get the same one as I do, it's a URC0410. There's 2 plugs that are in line with the red and the white. It is an overload relay, which you want to plug back into the unit. Once you have that plugged back in, you want to find the plugs that you had disconnected and unplugged, plug them back together. And once you get them plugged back together, before buttoning up and putting the whole unit back together, I like to take my power cord and plug the unit back in, and we have compressor. So that took care of our problem. It could run for 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, 10 years with this component on there. Cannot really say which way, because there is always a potential for internal damage to the unit. And I can already feel it is removing heat from the inside of the refrigerator. The hose over here is very warm, and the ones on the other side are cold. I'm going to reassemble. I'm going to place these pieces back inside the unit. Make sure when you tuck them in there that they're not touching the roller so that you can have them back in there far enough and not have them come disconnected for some reason. I'm going to put the back on. It's 4 screws, and that completes our repair for the day. So as I'm putting this back together, something that I just want to remind you of and make sure this back panel has to go back on the unit. This back panel allows the fan to move air properly across your condensing coils so that it will remove heat properly. If it is not back on there, you will have a cooling problem. You will not be able to make your refrigerator or your freezer cold enough to maintain your food temperature. And then right here, you probably took one of these off the back. If you have a water line going to your unit, you want to make sure your water line is in here. It is for your own safety and your house's own safety. If this is not on there, you have the potential to pull the water line out of your water valve or break it off at your water valve. And if that happens, water will flow out of your main water line until you turn it off at the basement, at the crawl, in a closet, who knows where it is. Hopefully you do, and if it does break, it will continue to flow water until you turn it off. So make sure this is on to secure your water valve and your line to the back of your refrigerator. That concludes our repair for the day. Thank you for watching another quality video brought to you by ApplianceVideo.com.